can you do emulation on a budget gaming PC? Well, yeah, obviously you can. But what kind of emulation can you do? Can you do PS2 or PS3 or Xbox 360 or Gamecube or WiiU? I'm not sure, to be honest. Why not? Well, I don't know. I guess because I've never tried? Well, try now. Wait, what? Are you making a video? Yes. Am I in the video right now? Yes. Well, you could have told me first. I'm still in my pajamas here. Don't be shy. Your pajamas are cute. Oh, really? Yeah, I love them. You're sweet. Alright, fine. I'll be in your video. Alright. Hello, I'm TechDweeb. Welcome. Thanks for clicking on the video. This is you. You're in your late 30s or early 40s. You have a job of some sort, like an office job or something, and a family that you love with all your heart. Probably. Life is good, but there's something missing. And I'm not talking about drugs. You gave those up long ago. Probably not a good idea to go down that dark road again. I mean, there's games missing from your life. Video games even. About a year ago, you bought yourself a cheap budget gaming PC to play games upon, and you've been playing some of the most popular PC games that all the cool people are playing instead of doing drugs. Sweet drugs. And you've had a good time, but that hasn't quite scratched your itch. You want some emulation in your life. Emulation and drugs. No, not drugs. Of course not drugs. So emulation it is. You have no doubt that your budget gaming PC can handle most of the lower end stuff. If it can handle GTA 5, then surely it can handle some PS2 at the very least. But can it? Can it really? What about beyond that? The higher end emulation that emulation people do? Well, there's only one way to find out. So, put down those drugs. Oh, for crying out loud, enough with the freaking drugs. And let's see what sort of high end emulation your budget PC can handle, shall we? Oh, you. So, yeah, this is what I'm gonna call a budget gaming PC. It's not a gaming beast, it's just sort of a normalish, cheap gaming PC. Its components are meant to play PC games. Not at the highest graphical settings or anything, but yeah, it can play whatever games you want. Newer games at like 1080p with low or medium settings, older games at high settings, and it can even handle some easier to run games or older games at really high resolutions and max settings. Before we dive into some emulation, let me tell you about this PC. It has an i5-9100F, 16GB of DDR4 RAM, clocked at 3200 MHz, a 500GB SATA SSD, a 1TB system drive, and the GPU is the GTX 1650. A PC with these specs should cost you around, I don't know, $500 or $600, maybe $400 if it's a used PC. This one here is actually my cousin's PC, my little cousin who lives near me. She uses this PC to play Minecraft with her brother. She plays some simpler games like I Am Fish, Fall Guys, Rocket League, a little bit of Fortnite. It's good for that, but we're not here for that. We're here for drugs. I mean emulation. This is the second video in a 3-part video series. The first video was focused on what sort of emulation you could do on a low-end PC. This video, the second video, is focused on what sort of emulation you could do on a budget gaming PC, like a middle-of-the-road PC. And the final video will be focused on what emulation options that we have on a super high-end badass gaming PC. The other videos in this series will be linked in the description below. I'm running most of this emulation off the RetroBat emulation hard drive that I reviewed recently on the channel. Link to that video in the description below. You could pick this up on Amazon, and it comes pre-installed with 2 terabytes of games. All the systems up to the Gamecube era with RetroBat as the front end, all the emulators all pre-configured. It's basically plug and play, ready to go. You can use this on any Windows PC. I like this thing. I genuinely think it's a good product. I'll include a link to this in the description below if you want to pick one up to do what I'm doing here, turning an old budget gaming PC into an emulation PC. So let's quit wasting time and see for ourselves what kind of emulation can we do on a budget gaming PC like this, shall we? So let's get this out of the way. All the low-end stuff is gonna run fine. That should be obvious. You can play all your Atari, NES, Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis, TurboGrafx-16, Game Boy, Game Boy Advance, even the higher end retro stuff like Sega CD, 32X, no problem with any of that stuff. You can run that stuff on any PC, really. And how cool is that? If you have some old, slow, low-end PC, some old laptop or something, there's a good chance that you could play the first 20 years of video game history without any issue. Everything up to the 3D era will run on your freaking cell phone. Some of the best games of all time are playable on pretty much any device. But as good as these games are, they're not graphically impressive. So let's move beyond the 2D era of gaming and get into the 3D systems. The first generation of 3D systems were the PlayStation, the Nintendo 64, and the Sega Saturn. So can our budget gaming PC handle those? Oh baby, can it ever. Not only can this budget PC play PS1, Nintendo 64, and Sega Saturn, it can upscale those systems. Now, I personally don't like upscaling the older 3D systems like PS1 and Sega Saturn, but some people do. They like to push the old games to look as updated and modern as they can. And on this budget gaming PC, we can upscale all three of these systems all the way to 4K. And they stay running silky smooth. Yeah, that's right. Did you know that your budget gaming PC is actually a 4K gaming PC with the entire library of PlayStation, Nintendo 64, and Sega Saturn? Well, it is. It could play these systems at 4K without breaking a sweat. And not just the first generation of 3D home consoles. We can also do the first generation of portable 3D systems too. With this setup, the Nintendo DS has a maximum upscale of 8x native resolution, and it's holding a constant 60 FPS like this. Now, I don't know why you'd want to play games that look like Nintendo DS games at anything beyond like 720p, but you can if you're into that sort of thing. And PSP too. I'm happy to report that our budget gaming PC can play even the hardest to run PSP games upscaled to 10x PSP resolution without much issue. It's holding a solid 60 FPS most of the time. We do get occasional dips below 60 and like the transitions between scenes when stuff is loading, but that might be due to the fact that we're running this off an external hard drive, so I wouldn't put too much stock into that. On to the second generation of 3D systems. That'll be PS2, Gamecube, and Dreamcast. Let's start with PS2. PS2 is a treat to run on this system. I'm running it in the PCSX2 emulator with the Direct 3D backend, upscaled to 1440p, and I was able to maintain a constant 60 FPS. I couldn't get playable performance at anything over 1440p, and I'm sure that some of the hardest to emulate PS2 games will need to be bumped down to 1080p, but even still, 1080p PS2 isn't so bad at all. If you have a budget gaming PC like this, you're probably playing your games at 1080p anyways. The GTX 1650 in this system isn't going to do much at higher resolutions than that, so I'm going to say that this is pretty much the best that you can hope for here. Gamecube did better than PS2 though. In the Dolphin emulator with the Vulkan backend, I was playing Mario Kart Double Dash at 4K, and it was running beautifully. I had the widescreen hacks enabled here too, which is more demanding, and even still it was running without issue. This emulator also does Nintendo Wii, and once again, it upscaled to 4K, and it was running really well. Actually, in Donkey Kong Country Returns, I was getting a few drops below 60 FPS, but nothing too drastic. It was totally playable. I would play like this, but if you wanted to maintain a constant steady 60 FPS, you probably want to drop down to like 1440p. And Dreamcast did amazing. Here's Dead or Alive 2, upscaled to 4K, and it's holding a steady, smooth 60 FPS the entire time. No dips or anything, so you can see all the crisp, smooth details of the models, the game models in all their detail. So smooth and soft. What were we talking about again? And then we're on to the second generation of portable systems. That's the 3DS and that popular modern Nintendo handheld that we have to speak in code about. The 3DS did good. I'm running it in the Libretro Citra core, Vulkan backend, with 5x internal resolution, which is about 1080p. And here in Mario 3D Land, I'm getting nearly 60 FPS all the time. We do get some dips down below 60 though, especially when going between areas, but I think that's just a quirk of this emulator. the way it has to compile the shaders. Yeah, but maybe if we had a more powerful CPU that could compile the shaders faster, we wouldn't have those dips. It'll be interesting to see how our high-end gaming PC test does with this same setup. I'm gonna give 3DS a thumbs up though. You can play up to 1080p at least. And on to some YUZU emulation for that other handheld console that everyone likes these days. I'm running this Odyssey game at 1080p and it's doing not bad. We do get some dips below 60 FPS, and in this emulator I can actually feel the dips. It sort of chugs a bit when they happen. It's not the end of the world, it's actually totally playable, but it's a bit of a shame that we can't get a smooth 60 FPS, considering that this console isn't a powerhouse or anything. However, this emulator, the YUZU emulator, is pretty new, all things considered, and it's getting better all the time, so it wouldn't surprise me if this PC will be able to play these games with better performance in the near future. Again, I'm curious to see what our super high-end gaming PC will be able to do. And now, we'll be on to the high-end stuff, the third generation of 3D systems, WiiU, PS3, and Xbox 360. Well, first the bad news. PS3 is not playable, not at all. I'm running in the RPCS3 emulator, Vulkan backend. I lowered the resolution right down to 720p. The game would launch, sorta, but it's not even remotely playable. You can see by the usage that we're pegged at 100% CPU usage the entire time. The game gets stuck and hangs there for a super long time, and it just doesn't snap out of it. So as much as I wish that we could at least run PS3 games, it's just not gonna work on this lower end budget system, unfortunately. Xbox 360 is not quite playable, but it's almost there. I guess you could play like this. In the Xenia emulator, Red Dead Redemption is trying really hard to reach the 30 FPS cap. It doesn't get there in the busier sections of the game like here in town, but later out in the countryside, it actually feels pretty good at times. But even there, we do get some pretty massive performance drops. I'm not going to call this playable, not like this. But maybe you'd be able to mess with some settings, some Xenia configs that drop the resolution way down and disable the grass or something. That's something you could do, but that's beyond what I'm gonna bother with in this video. However, since we're CPU limited in both PS3 and Xbox 360, that means that if you had a similar PC as this, but with a slightly better processor, you might be able to get away with these systems. PS3 in particular hated this processor, but I've ran RPCS3 on some pretty modest systems with some really impressive results. And I do think that even this higher end stuff will run just fine on our high end gaming PC. I'm definitely curious to see how we'll do with these emulators when we have the horsepower to run them at their full potential. And I wanted to end on a high note. Here's some good news. We get a really solid showing from the WiiU. I'm running Breath of the Wild, upscaled to 1440p. We do get a few dips, but it's not super noticeable. This emulator doesn't get audio glitches or anything when it drops down to the FPS. It just sort of feels like a PC game in that regard. So sub 60 FPS is totally fine in most cases. And this game looks freaking amazing like this. 1440p Breath of the Wild is not so bad at all. It'll be interesting to see what our high-end gaming setup will be able to do with this. I bet we'll be able to run this at 4K over there. So, comparing our performance today on the budget gaming PC with our previous super low-end dusty old office PC, you can tell that we have way more options. They can both run all the old stuff, obviously. The first gen 3D systems ran on the low-end PC, but the budget gaming PC, we can upscale them up to 4K. The first generation portable systems ran at 2x resolution on the low-end PC, but on this budget gaming PC, we can max them out. The second generation consoles barely ran on the low-end PC, and some games didn't run at all. Not so here. Gamecube, PS2, and Dreamcast ran amazing at 1440p resolution at the very least, and some of them up to 4K. The low-end PC couldn't handle the second-gen portable systems at all, but we can here, and we can even do a bit of upscaling on the 3DS. And of course, the low-end PC couldn't play the third-gen 3D consoles. And we can't play PS3 here. And Xbox 360 is just on the edge of playable, but we can play WiiU, and it plays really well too. So it'll be very interesting to see what the next tier of performance that we'll get is on the high-end badass gaming PC. Will we be able to run every game on every console? Or will there still be some systems and games that give us problems? Will we be able to max them out and play everything at 4K resolution? Will I ever stop throwing bananas at my cat? Find out on the next episode of what kind of emulation can you do on that PC. Same TechDweeb time, same TechDweeb channel. And if you liked this video, click the thumbs up button. Or don't if you didn't. I'd like to give a big thanks to my generous patrons who help make videos like this possible. If you'd like to sign up and help support the channel or the things that I do, there's a link in the description below. That's it for me. I'm TechDweeb. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.